First story: The Silent Visitor, by Emily Thompson. It was a chilly evening in mid-November when I found myself alone in my small apartment in the heart of Chicago. My roommate, Sarah, had left for a weekend trip, leaving me to enjoy the solitude. Little did I know, that weekend would become a haunting memory etched into my mind forever. I had settled into the living room, engrossed in a novel, when I heard a subtle creaking sound. At first, I dismissed it as the usual noises an old building makes. But then, the creaking persisted, and it sounded distinctly like footsteps. Panic gripped me as I realized I was home alone. I cautiously tiptoed toward the front door, my ears strained to catch any sound. The footsteps continued, slow and deliberate. Fear surged through me as I peeked through the peephole, revealing a tall figure wearing a tattered hoodie and a wide-brimmed hat. The stranger seemed to sense my presence, turning to face the peephole directly. I recoiled, heart pounding in my chest. How did this person know I was there? I stumbled backward, reaching for my phone to dial the police. As I spoke to the dispatcher, the footsteps drew nearer. The dispatcher assured me that help was on the way, but the minutes dragged on like hours. In the dim light of my apartment, I noticed a shadow moving just outside the window. My breath caught in my throat as I realized the intruder had circled around the building. The chilling realization hit me. This wasn't a mere coincidence. I was being targeted. With trembling hands, I locked every door and window, the footsteps now replaced by an eerie silence. I huddled in the corner of the room, clutching my phone like a lifeline. Suddenly, a tapping sound echoed from the kitchen. Dread washed over me as I realized the intruder was now inside. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to make myself invisible. The stranger's footsteps approached the living room, each one echoing like a death knell. My eyes darted around, searching for any means of escape. In the darkness, I noticed the closet door slightly ajar. As the intruder entered the room, I held my breath, praying they wouldn't discover me. They lingered for a moment, the silence stretching to its limit. Then, as abruptly as they had come, the footsteps retreated. I remained hidden until the police arrived, their arrival punctuating the nightmare. They searched the apartment thoroughly, finding no sign of the intruder. The experience left me paralyzed with fear, questioning the safety of my own home. The police assured me they would patrol the area more frequently, but the lingering uncertainty lingered in the air. To this day, I can't shake the feeling of being watched, haunted by the memory of the silent visitor who invaded my sanctuary that chilling November night. Second story: The Whispers in the Suburbs, by David Mitchell. Living in the quiet suburbs of Denver had always felt like a haven, a peaceful retreat from the chaos of city life. However, that illusion shattered one stormy night when I found myself home alone, my family away on a weekend getaway. The wind howled outside, and rain lashed against the windows, creating an eerie backdrop for the events that unfolded. As I settled into the living room with a cup of tea and a book, a strange sound cut through the storm, whispers, soft and almost indiscernible. At first, I dismissed it as the wind playing tricks on me, but the whispers persisted, growing louder and more coherent. It was as if unseen voices were converging just beyond the walls of my seemingly safe suburban home. Curiosity mingled with unease as I followed the source of the sounds. The whispers led me to the basement door, which stood slightly ajar. Swallowing my apprehension, I descended the creaky stairs into the dimly lit cellar. The air grew thick with tension as the whispers intensified, forming fragmented sentences that hinted at a dark secret. In the corner of the basement, a flickering light revealed an old wooden chest. Its rusty hinges groaned as I opened it, revealing a collection of weathered photographs and newspaper clippings. The images depicted families who had once inhabited my home, their faces frozen in time. The whispers coalesced into a chilling narrative, tales of tragedies that had befallen the previous occupants. It seemed my suburban refuge held a dark history, one that the stormy night sought to unveil. Terrifying realizations flooded my mind as I connected the dots between the whispered tales and the unsettling occurrences that had plagued my family since we moved in. Just as the truth dawned on me, the lights flickered, and the whispers reached a crescendo. Shadows danced across the walls, taking on grotesque shapes that seemed to mock my terror. In that moment, I felt an otherworldly presence, a force that sought to share the weight of its secrets. I fled the basement, the storm outside mirroring the tempest within. The whispers followed me, echoing through the halls as if the very walls retained the memories of past sorrows. I sought refuge in the safety of my car, driving aimlessly through the rain-soaked streets until the first light of dawn. The suburbs that once seemed idyllic had become a labyrinth of haunting echoes. The storm eventually subsided, but the whispers lingered, a reminder that even the most peaceful facade can conceal the shadows of the past. Third story, The Vanishing Act, by Marcus Turner. In the outskirts of Atlanta, where dense woods embraced the quiet neighborhoods, I found myself alone for the weekend. My friends had convinced me to join them on a camping trip, but work commitments had tethered me to my secluded house. Little did I know, the solitude would become a test of sanity. As dusk settled over the tranquil surroundings, I heard a rhythmic knocking on my front door. It wasn't a forceful bang but a persistent, methodical tap. I cautiously approached, peering through the peephole to find a disheveled man standing on my porch. His eyes held a vacant stare, and his clothes were stained with mud. I hesitated but eventually opened the door, my instincts urging me to offer assistance. The man introduced himself as Jacob, claiming his car had broken down, and he needed to use my phone. His request seemed innocent enough, but a nagging unease settled in the pit of my stomach. As he made the call, I noticed his gaze wandering around the house, lingering on personal items as if committing them to memory. The conversation was brief, and he thanked me before vanishing into the night. I chalked it up to a random encounter, but the unease lingered. Hours later, as I prepared for bed, I heard soft footsteps outside my bedroom window. Peeking through the curtains, I saw Jacob standing in the moonlight, staring directly at me. Fear gripped my chest as I reached for my phone, dialing the police as silently as possible. The dispatcher assured me that an officer would be dispatched, but panic set in as I realized how far away help was. I retreated to my closet, heart pounding, and waited in the darkness. The footsteps approached the bedroom door, and I held my breath. To my horror, the door swung open, revealing an empty hallway. The footsteps persisted, though, echoing through the house like a macabre dance. I dared not move, my eyes fixed on the doorway as the unseen intruder explored every room. The minutes stretched into an eternity until the police arrived, their flashing lights cutting through the darkness. They combed the house but found no trace of Jacob. The officer assured me they would patrol the area, but the mystery of the intruder lingered, leaving me with an unsettling truth. Sometimes, the dangers that lurk in the shadows vanish as mysteriously as they appear, leaving behind only the echoes of a chilling encounter. Fourth story, The Enigmatic Caller, by Olivia Rodriguez. Nestled in the suburbs of San Francisco, my quaint cottage became a haven of uncertainty during one particularly stormy weekend. With my family off to visit relatives, I anticipated a quiet few days. Little did I know, the silence would be shattered by a series of mysterious phone calls that would plunge me into a nightmarish abyss. The rain lashed against the windows, creating a symphony of anxiety. As I cozied up with a book and a cup of tea, the phone rang. I answered to hear heavy breathing on the other end, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. Initially dismissing it as a wrong number or a prank, I hung up, only for the phone to ring again minutes later. This time, a raspy voice whispered cryptic messages, its tone carrying an eerie familiarity. The caller seemed to know details about my life that sent a chill down my spine. Unease settled in as I locked all the doors and windows, my senses on high alert. As the night wore on, the calls persisted, each one more unnerving than the last. The voice spoke of secrets I had buried in the recesses of my past, secrets that no stranger should know. Fear gripped me, and I considered calling the police, but the enigmatic caller seemed to anticipate my every move. The climax came when the voice on the other end revealed my exact location and described the very room I sat in. Panic surged through me as I realized the caller was not some random tormentor but someone with a disturbing level of intimate knowledge about my life. Desperation drove me to seek refuge at a neighbor's house, where I called the police. Their investigation yielded no tangible leads, and I spent the rest of the weekend in constant fear, glancing over my shoulder at every shadow. The storm outside mirrored the chaos within. In the aftermath, I changed my phone number, installed security measures, and tried to convince myself it was an elaborate prank. But the unsettling truth remained: someone, somewhere, knew the darkest corners of my past and reveled in the torment of revealing them. Fifth story: The Forgotten Room, by Benjamin Walsh. My solitary weekend in the suburbs of Boston turned into a chilling ordeal that defied logic. In the midst of the historic charm, I stumbled upon a forgotten room within my own home, setting off a chain of events that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. It began innocently enough. While rearranging furniture in the attic, I noticed a peculiar door hidden behind stacks of dusty boxes. Intrigued, I opened it to reveal a room that seemed frozen in time. Antique furniture, faded wallpaper, and an eerie stillness enveloped the space. I was certain I had explored every inch of my house, but this room remained a secret. As I delved deeper into the forgotten chamber, I discovered a series of old journals, each chronicling the lives of previous occupants. The entries spoke of a mysterious illness that befell the family, an affliction that caused hallucinations and paranoia. The more I read, the more I felt a sinister presence lurking within the room. One evening, as I sat in the dim light of the forgotten room, a shadow moved across the wall. My breath caught as the temperature dropped, and the air seemed to thicken. Whispers echoed, recounting tales of despair and loss. Fear seized me, but curiosity kept me tethered to the haunted space. The room became a vortex of inexplicable occurrences. Objects moved on their own, faint laughter echoed through the walls, and a chilling draft whispered secrets that sent shivers down my spine. It felt as though the past had woven itself into the very fabric of the room, and I was an unwilling spectator to a haunting drama. Nights turned into sleepless vigils, and the boundary between reality and the supernatural blurred. The forgotten room became a portal to a bygone era, where the echoes of tragedy reverberated. Terrified and unable to escape, I grappled with the realization that some secrets are best left undisturbed. Eventually, my sanity teetered on the edge, and I sought the help of a paranormal investigator. As they delved into the history of the house, they uncovered tales of a family torn apart by an unexplainable force. The investigator performed a ritual to cleanse the space, but the room remained, a haunting reminder that the past can seep into the present, leaving an indelible mark on those who dare to uncover its mysteries. Sixth story: The Wandering Shadows, by Jessica Hayes. In the quiet outskirts of Austin, where the Texas heat clung to the air like a suffocating embrace, I found myself alone in my family's ranch-style house. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the vast expanse of land enveloped in an inky darkness. Little did I know, the solitude of the Lone Star State would become the backdrop for a spine-chilling encounter with the unknown. As I sat on the porch, taking in the vast stretch of fields that disappeared into the night, I noticed subtle movements at the edge of my vision. Shadows, elongated and ethereal, danced across the landscape. At first, I dismissed them as mere figments of my imagination, remnants of a tired mind seeking solace in the quietude of the ranch. As the night deepened, the shadows grew more defined, taking on humanoid shapes that moved with a deliberate purpose. Fear tinged the air as the realization set in. These were not ordinary shadows, but something far more sinister. They seemed to possess a sentience, drifting closer with every passing moment. Curiosity mingled with dread as I cautiously stepped off the porch, the uneven ground beneath my feet adding to the unease. The shadows converged, forming a haunting silhouette that stood at the periphery of the darkness. Its presence exuded an otherworldly energy that sent shivers down my spine. I retreated to the safety of the porch, my eyes fixed on the enigmatic shadows that now circled the house. The air grew thick with an unspoken menace as I realized they were not confined to the outdoors. Inside, the rooms flickered with a spectral glow, and the shadows crept along the walls like silent specters. As I navigated the house, the shadows seemed to mimic my every movement, a macabre dance that mirrored the rhythm of my growing terror. Whispers, soft and indistinct, echoed through the hallways, as if the shadows carried the weight of forgotten secrets. In a moment of desperate courage, I confronted the shadows in the heart of the living room. The air grew cold, and an unearthly silence enveloped the space. The shadows, now a swirling vortex of darkness, converged on me, and I felt a cold touch, as if unseen fingers grazed my skin. In that instant, time seemed to stand still. The shadows retreated, leaving me breathless in the midst of an unspoken encounter with the unknown. The night resumed its normal stillness, the shadows dissipating into the darkness from whence they came. Days later, as I recounted the surreal experience to friends, skepticism met my words. Yet, the memory of those wandering shadows lingered, a reminder that in the vast expanse of the Texas night, there are entities that defy explanation, leaving only the unsettling traces of their presence. Seventh story: The Mirror's Reflection, by Elena Vasquez. In the heart of historic Savannah, where the Spanish moss draped languidly from ancient oak trees, I found myself alone in a charming Victorian-era home. The creaking floorboards and flickering gas lamps set the stage for an unsettling tale that unfolded within the confines of a seemingly ordinary mirror. As I perused the antique shops that lined the cobblestone streets, I stumbled upon a full-length mirror that exuded an inexplicable allure. Its ornate frame hinted at a rich history, and I couldn't resist bringing it back to my temporary abode. Little did I know, that mirror held a secret that would blur the lines between the living and the supernatural. As night fell, I placed the mirror in the corner of my bedroom, its reflective surface casting an eerie glow in the dim light. The antique glass seemed to beckon, drawing me closer as if inviting me to peer beyond the boundaries of the visible world. It was then that I noticed a subtle distortion in the reflection, a figure standing just beyond my line of sight. Unease crawled up my spine as I turned away, dismissing it as a trick of the light. Yet, each time I glanced at the mirror, the figure appeared more defined, its presence palpable yet elusive. I rationalized it as a product of fatigue or an overactive imagination, but the truth was far more unsettling. In the dead of night, as the city slept beneath a blanket of stars, I awoke to a soft whisper that seemed to emanate from the mirror. The figure within shifted, its form becoming more tangible. Fear gripped me as I realized the entity mirrored my every move, as if bound to the glass by an unseen force. Compelled by a morbid curiosity, I reached out to touch the mirror. To my horror, my fingers met a cold surface, and the figure mirrored my touch from the other side. Panic set in as I realized the reflection was not my own but a distorted version, a doppelganger existing in a parallel reality. The nights that followed were a descent into madness as the figure in the mirror became more animated, its movements mirroring my own with a haunting precision. Desperation drove me to seek the help of a local psychic, who revealed that the mirror harbored a trapped spirit, yearning for release. Together, we performed a ritual to sever the spectral connection, but the process unleashed a surge of supernatural energy. The figure in the mirror contorted in agony, its wails echoing through the room. In a blinding flash, the mirror shattered, leaving me in a breathless silence. The specter was gone, but the echo of its presence lingered. The once charming Victorian home now bore the weight of a supernatural encounter, a testament to the thin veil that separates the living from the realm of the unseen in the enchanting city of Savannah. 8th story. The Whispers of Hallowed Halls, by Michael O'Connor. In the historic heart of Philadelphia, where cobblestone streets echoed with the tales of centuries past, I found myself alone in an ancestral townhouse. The towering structure, adorned with intricate ironwork and looming gargoyles, harbored a legacy that unfolded in chilling whispers within its hallowed halls. As I explored the grandeur of the home, the air seemed to thicken with a tangible history. The walls whispered of Revolutionary-era secrets and clandestine gatherings that had transpired within. The ancestral portraits stared with scrutinizing eyes, their gaze following my every move as I traversed the labyrinthine corridors. One evening, as I settled into the study, the flickering candlelight cast shadows that danced along the walls. A subtle chill permeated the room, and I felt the weight of unseen eyes upon me. The whispers, soft and insistent, began to unravel a narrative of betrayal and tragedy that had plagued the family for generations. As I delved deeper into the history, I uncovered a hidden passageway concealed behind a bookshelf. The narrow corridor led to a forgotten chamber adorned with dusty tomes and aged manuscripts. The room exuded an otherworldly energy, and a sense of foreboding settled in as I realized it was a space where dark rituals had once transpired. Late into the night, the ancestral portraits seemed to come alive, their eyes glowing with an ethereal light. The whispers escalated, weaving tales of lost souls and vengeful spirits that wandered the halls seeking redemption. Fear gripped me as the temperature plummeted, and unseen hands brushed against my skin. In a moment of desperation, I sought the guidance of a local historian who revealed a long-buried family secret. Generations ago, a betrayal had led to a curse that bound the spirits within the ancestral home. The only way to break the curse was to confront the lingering shadows and offer them a path to rest. Together, we embarked on a harrowing journey to commune with the spirits. The hallowed halls echoed with anguished cries as the spirits manifested, their ethereal forms reaching out for solace. With each revelation and act of contrition, the atmosphere shifted, and the weight that hung in the air began to lift. In the final moments, as the first light of dawn bathed the townhouse, the ancestral portraits returned to their stoic gaze, and the whispers faded into the echoes of history. The curse was broken, and the hallowed halls, once haunted by the sins of the past, stood silent, allowing the ancestral home to reclaim its place in the present. Ninth story. The Forgotten Cemetery, by Sophie Williams. In the outskirts of New Orleans, where the air was thick with the scent of magnolias and the bayou whispered ancient secrets, I found myself alone in a rustic cottage surrounded by a forgotten cemetery. The decaying tombstones, hidden beneath moss-draped oaks, held the key to a spectral encounter that blurred the boundaries between the living and the afterlife. As night fell, the moon cast an ethereal glow on the weathered tombstones that surrounded the cottage. The air carried a heavy stillness, broken only by the distant croaking of frogs and the rustle of leaves. I dismissed the eerie atmosphere as a byproduct of the bayou's mystique, but the night held something far more profound. In the midst of an oppressive silence, I heard the distant sound of mournful wails, the echoes of a forgotten grief that seemed to emanate from the cemetery. Curiosity mingled with trepidation as I ventured into the moonlit graveyard, my senses heightened by the enigmatic symphony of the night. As I approached an ancient mausoleum, the cries intensified, reaching a crescendo that resonated within my very soul. The heavy scent of incense wafted through the air, and the flickering candles revealed shadowy figures that moved with an otherworldly grace. The cemetery had come alive with the spectral remnants of lives long past. The apparitions, clad in tattered funeral attire, gathered around a weathered grave, their mournful gazes fixated on the tombstone. A name, long forgotten by the living, adorned the stone, a name that seemed to carry the weight of unfinished business. The spirits beckoned me closer, their ethereal fingers pointing to the inscription. In a moment of spectral communion, the spirits conveyed their tales of tragedy, betrayal, and unfulfilled destinies. The cemetery had become a realm where the souls of the departed sought resolution, a sanctuary where the living and the dead existed in precarious harmony. Determined to offer solace, I sought the guidance of a voodoo priestess, who performed a ritual to bridge the gap between the realms. The night sky crackled with unseen energy as the spirits were given a voice to express their final wishes and seek forgiveness for sins long buried. With the first light of dawn, the cemetery fell silent, the apparitions fading into the morning mist. The forgotten graveyard, once shrouded in the sorrow of the departed, now exuded a tranquil serenity. As I returned to the cottage, the bayou whispered its gratitude, and the forgotten cemetery became a testament to the delicate balance between the living and the lingering spirits that inhabited the realm of the afterlife. 10th story. The Enchanted Lighthouse, by Alexander Morrison. On the rugged coastline of Maine, where crashing waves met windswept cliffs, I found myself alone in an isolated lighthouse that stood as a sentinel against the relentless sea. The beacon, with its towering spire and panoramic views, became the backdrop for a haunting tale that unfolded in the solitude of its windswept chambers. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I ascended the spiral staircase to the lantern room, where the rhythmic pulse of the lighthouse beam cut through the gathering darkness. The sea roared below, and the air was laced with the briny scent of salt. Little did I know, the isolation of the lighthouse would become a canvas for an otherworldly encounter. As night fell, the lighthouse took on an ethereal glow, its beams slicing through the inky blackness like a spectral sword. The wind outside howled with an intensity that seemed to carry whispered secrets. In the solitude of the lantern room, I heard soft footsteps that echoed through the spiral staircase. Curiosity mingled with trepidation as I descended to the lower levels, where the living quarters clung to the edge of the cliff. In the flickering candlelight, I saw the silhouette of a figure, a spectral mariner clad in tattered seafaring attire. His eyes, haunted and distant, met mine, and the temperature in the room plummeted. The mariner, a ghost from a bygone era, shared tales of shipwrecks and lost souls that had met their demise on the treacherous rocks below. He spoke of a cursed vessel that roamed the seas, its crew forever bound to the turbulent waves. The lighthouse, a beacon of salvation, became the focal point for the lost spirits seeking solace. Haunted by the mariner's story, I climbed back to the lantern room, where the lighthouse beam painted the night in an otherworldly dance of light and shadow. The sea below seemed to churn with unseen energy, as if responding to the spectral presence that lingered within the lighthouse. In a moment of eerie communion, I activated the lighthouse's foghorn, its mournful wail echoing through the night. The sound resonated with the lost souls at sea, and the mariner's spirit, freed from its spectral chains, dissipated into the night air. The wind outside, once a howling tempest, now carried a gentle whisper of gratitude. As dawn broke, the lighthouse stood silent against the backdrop of the rising sun. The sea, once tumultuous, now embraced a tranquil calm. The isolation that had once seemed oppressive now held a serene beauty, and the enchanted lighthouse became a beacon not only for ships at sea but for the souls seeking refuge in the quietude of its windswept chambers. Thank you for joining us for the whole video. That video you see on screen is one of my favorite. Check it out. If you've enjoyed these horror stories, show your support by hitting the subscribe button. Did this tale send chills down your spine? Let me know in the comments.